DJ PK, and we're joined once again by Real Salt Lake head coach Pablo Mastroeni. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Well, you got some help. You got some good news. You took care of business, and then other things broke your way. You have advanced to the Leagues Cup quarterfinals later this month. Congratulations on that. That is also going to mean another midweek game. And I think most people like one or two midweek games a month and then play every Saturday. You're playing twice a week, every week. You are drinking out of the fire hose right now. I know you got to do it, so you're just going to say, well, we got to do it and I don't worry about it. But is there a point where it's too much of a good thing, or you get minutes for all these guys so you don't have to listen to them complain about that, and that's a good thing?
Yeah, no, I think it's a little bit of everything. But, again, I think we have to just deal with what's in front of us. And, I think the Leagues Cup, the first three games was a good dry run as to, rotating quite a few players, keeping the level high, some really good understanding of the way we want to play even with the changes that we made, and some good experience for the guys. And so, I think I always talk about team, and I think we're going to have to show that more than ever in the next few weeks. But I feel really good about where the group's at. And, I think when you have a little bit of momentum, magic can happen. So just staying really positive and getting everyone some minutes. And like you said, it'll keep everyone happy.
Yeah, see, Pablo, DJ, he's a little bit of a downer, but you and I, being Thunderbird Chiefs, we were just raised on positivity. I would think that it's, wow, this is great timing because you lose Gozo, and then you have an opportunity here, and you can practice till you're blue in the face, but there's nothing like a match or game as far as recreating it. That is the real stuff. That's where everything happens. And so now you have these games here, extra games, to, as you say, see what works and find out what you do going forward after losing a premier player. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. I think anytime there's a void, it's going to be filled. And sometimes the team might look a little bit different than it did when we had Gozo. But we still want to be, again, we want to be competitive. We want to be efficient with our work. And so different guys are carrying the load. One of the things I've been talking about is, Gozo was a real threat in that final third. And Zach Booth has done a really good job, but I think it'd be quite unfair to put all the burden on him. And so we've been asking our attacking players to make sure they end up in the box. Like, we need to be, goal dangerous now that Gozo's not here. And, I'd say of the 7 goals, 5 of them we've had, 4 or more players in the box at any one time. And anytime you do that, you pick up second balls, you're able to just knock it in. But so we've tweaked our tactics a little bit to make up for that. But then there's other guys stepping up, Lineker Rodriguez stepping up, Serge stepping up, Diego Luna stepping up, and so Morgan stepping up. And so it's just forced everyone to, pick up the 1 or 2% to make up for Gozo's absence. And in light of that, you see some really good performances. You give other guys opportunities. And so we can start to now look at our group a little bit differently than we did prior to Gozo leaving.
Booth and Lineker Rodriguez are young guys who are emerging. And then you've got Pablo Ruiz, who's been multiple injuries, multiple years, and he seems to be, it's a small snapshot, but this is like the best stuff we've seen out of him in 3 years. And then you got Arias there in the middle of the back three, who's both a young guy and coming back from injury. He's been so off the radar. What can you tell RSL fans about him? What is he like? What do you like about him? How is he to be around? Because I don't think people know anything about him.
Yeah, no, he's one of the brightest kids that has come to us. He's really, really bright, speaks really good English, learned English in Colombia. And oftentimes that's a big hurdle to get over for kids coming from South America, and one that got to adjust to the culture, and then they got to learn the language, and then they got to learn the style of play and all these different things. And I think what's been really good for him, he's been able to build good camaraderie within the group because he does speak English, and he's just a great guy. He's just a genuine human being, and he's got a really good growth mentality. So he's learning as he goes. The game in Colombia is a lot slower. They walk the ball up the field, and here, everyone's pressing everyone. So he's had to, adapt on the fly. But I thought he played some really important minutes for us, played some really good games for us. And in light of Jay Glad not being around for the last couple months, we were thinking about maybe bringing in another center back, but I think we found a really good one who's ready to play and contributing significantly in these last 3 games. So just a great professional, great young man.
Did you know that Booth's first name is actually Chadwick?
Chadwick, yeah. It's so interesting when I look at the team sheet, PK. I'm like, who's Chadwick? I always say, who's Chadwick?
I literally did that. I'm like, they're bringing in so many guys. Oh, wait, that's Zach. Okay, yeah.
You get mad at him. Do you ever call him his full name like a parent would do? No. Any of these guys? Chadwick?
Yeah, no. To be fair, Zach is such a great. Again, the one thing with our group is they're just great individuals. There's this, any mistakes they make, they're honest. They're never, contrived, and they're never thinking beyond just trying to do their best. So Chadwick's an amazing person, and he's showing some great flashes of quality.
Now, I know that you take time and go to meals with new guys, veterans, guys who are struggling, guys who need to step into a new role, and it's easier to bond and talk over food sometimes. I'm curious if you have ever gone with Chadwick to Eden, Utah. Have you been to Eden, Utah?
I don't know where that is.
I have not. I don't even know where that is either.
It's up in the mountains. It's by Pineview Reservoir. So it's like you go up to Ogden and you turn right and go up a canyon.
Huh. No, I'll ask him about it. I'll ask him about Eden.
Yeah. There's a big ski resort really close to where he is. So, yeah, he's not far from where the Olympic downhill was, actually. So,
interesting.
I'm wondering. I'm interested in this. Maybe nobody else is, but I'm curious. You came out of the break. You lost a couple of MLS games. Now you've been doing well in the Leagues Cup. How do these teams compare to the MLS teams?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I would say they're really comparable. The 2 teams that we played, Atalanta and Juarez, they were undefeated when they came to AFF, and so they'd beaten MLS opponents, rivals. And so I would say, they're on par with that. And I think the biggest difference, PK, is playing home and away. And I think that's true in, any league in the world. You're gonna have a lot more success at home than you are on the road. And so those first couple of games coming back from break were obviously LAFC, difficult place to play. Although we played well, we ended up losing that one. And then the Portland game where, we were winning until we got a red card. So there was a lot of little things that kind of took away from the performances. But at the end of the day, we didn't get the result. And so really just honing in on being the best version of ourselves. And we seem to, when we're at home, I don't know if it's because we sleep in our beds or if because we have the best 12th man in the league, the feeling that we get, the bravery that we play with. And again, I think the most important thing is scoring the first goal. And when you do that, you're able to really manage the game from a different perspective and play with a bit more calm. So I would say that's the biggest takeaway, but I would say that these games bring a lot of momentum in the locker room because, again, the belief is there. And if we can do it 2 games in a row, we can do it 3 games in a row, we can do it 4. We can now, we can start building upon each performance and not have to think about, we haven't won in a while. So I think these games are really, really important for the remainder of the season.
Kurt Schmid, Chief Soccer Officer, got that same question. He was on right before Leagues Cup started, and he felt like MLS had caught up with most of Liga MX, certainly the bottom and the middle. He said there were some big spending clubs at the top, which, to be fair, MLS has too. I think they might have bigger spending clubs than Miami and LAFC. But this whole thing, and people love to do it, and I get why, and I love to do it too, is this league better than that league? How does this league compare to that league? Pablo, there's like groups in this league. There's big gaps in leagues sometimes. So isn't that pretty hard? As you're evaluating players, don't you have to take that into account?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, right? And that's why I think for us, why the culture is so important, why we have to be greater than the sum of our parts, and to compete against the Suns and Boangas of the world, and the Rossies and the Kuipers that just went from MLS to Monterey. There's teams that are going to spend big money and And, these players are going to make the difference every game. Where, for us, I think you see it, we have difference makers for sure, but there's different names on the score sheet most games. And it's not one guy we're relying heavily upon to be the guy. And so I think it's a blessing and a curse, right? The blessing is that it forces us to be a team and figure out different ways to get results. But it also takes the burden off of one player to be the guy and show up every day. And if that guy's not on the day, maybe you don't get the result, right? So, I think every team constructs their groups differently. And again, just because you spend a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to be a good team. And the opposite is true. So I think having a balance of understanding who you are as a team, the type of people that you need. And because, again, oftentimes we look at sports differently, but it's like any other business. You want good people. You want smarter people than you in the building. And you want to create a culture where, it's not micromanaging. You trust them. They do a good job. When you have to course correct, you do that. But I think it's like any other business. And when you know who you are and what your identity is as a business, then you know the right people that can fit into that system to be successful. And so I think the people that we bring in are just as important as the quality of player we bring in.
Do you have familiarity with, or how much familiarity do you have with these players in this particular form of competition?
Yeah, we don't, PK, and not a lot anyways. Some of the big name players we're obviously familiar with, but again, I think it's a great opportunity to trust our process, to trust our game model and the way we play and the way we go about it, as opposed to spending so much time on our opponents, right? So we'll watch a couple of their league games, like for Tigres, we watched a couple of their league games because it was our first game, but then we watched, Atalante's game against, I think it was Vancouver, and then Juarez against Minnesota and Vancouver. So to get an idea of what their setup looks like against teams that we've already played against. And so it presents different challenges, but I like it because now we can really double down on us and say, well, it doesn't matter really who our opponents are. If we do, A, B, C right, we're going to find ways to win this game. And so, our scouts were really short. It was more almost like playing from a place of flow and not over analyzing our opponents and going into the weeds with all that stuff. And I think you saw the way the guys played when it was kind of, it was just about us, and they played free and they put together, 3 really good performances.
And I assume they have the same issues because everyone's on the same timeline. But I did think that they were giving Zach Booth a ton of space. I thought early in that last game, Pablo Ruiz picked his head up and he wanted to hit those big 60-yard diagonal. Mm-hmm. And they were moving left to right. And Pablo was roughly even with you and me. I kind of sit up in the air pretty similar to where you are. And I thought he picked up his head and looked and like, man, that guy's playing 20 yards off him. I better not. And he's kind of like, you can almost sense the disappointment. Man, that would have been fun. All right, and I'll play some respectable ball that Pablo will, approve of. He's probably disappointed in himself. But I thought it just showed they're scouting Zach Booth. Maybe it was just luck, but I thought they were scouting him.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think that's why it's always easier when you come on the scene and, you have more space to make plays because no one knows who you are. I think the more plays you start to make, a lot like Gozo, teams will play you differently. And what that ends up doing is it opens up space for other players. And that's why it's so important to have such quality players in those front 5 positions for us because, again, you can't just focus on Aluna. You have to deal with Morgan. You can't focus just on Morgan. You have Serge. Now you have Booth. And then you have Juanma. And so, the quality of these players lend themselves to creating space for their teammates. And then it's about making the best decision available. But, I'd like to see Pablo hit a couple more of those balls to open up defenses, especially early on. It's one of his strengths. But you're right. Teams are playing Zach a little bit closer, and so that weak side is going to be defended a little differently.
So you speak of that culture and bringing in people that are quality, basically. I'm wondering, and I assume this has happened to you, whether it's here or other places, as a player and as a manager and a coach. How many times have you, as an organization, whoever it might be, decided, okay, this guy's got the talent, but the other stuff isn't going to work.
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing process, PK. I think sometimes we feel like we've got a good beat on it, and then we go back and we think about the Zoom interview or the conversations that we had with said player, and there was some kind of red flag in and amongst it that we didn't catch, and I think it was because of the necessity of that. We just needed someone in. And so it's not that we overlooked it. It's this year we almost have this confirmation bias that we wanted to see what we wanted to see. But I think, this last year, I think we got every single one of them right. And, you can go back to, all the guys that we brought in from the beginning of this year, and Zach Booth and, Lucas Engel and Morgan Gilavogi and Sergi Solons and all these, Juan Sanabria. These guys have been just top, Juan Arias, top individuals. And so I think, it's like everything else. You're not going to get them all right. But, man, we've learned a lot over the years, and we brought in some real quality players that on paper looked to be a great fit for the team. But then culturally, when they came in, it was almost like they didn't fit. And it didn't, and I think what great players do or great people do is they create almost a synergistic effect where they can, they affect other players to the good, like Morgan Gilavogi, for example. Like, he's such a great player and he's plays with such poise and calm, but he's also an unbelievable person and teammate and works hard for the guy next to him. And I think when you have a combination of both of those, it starts to bleed into the rest of the group. And so it's not always easy, but I think we're getting better and better at it. And again, it's not, the type of person is going to be, it's all relative, right? Because certain teams might want more bulldogish, we just want guys that want to grow and get better and a growth mindset. And all these guys have that. And I think that's a really important quality because at the same time, we're trying to develop young players. And if we have experienced players with a growth mindset, it's so much easier to reach the younger players and get them on the same path that these other guys are on.
Do you think you saw a little bit of that mindset with Serge Solon and the goal he scored and lifting it over the keeper? Is that a ball he might have blasted over the bar a few months ago?
Oh, man, it's just an incredible goal. Yeah, DJ, again, this year has been so special with these guys because it's like sometimes I'm a coach, but most times, especially here at home, I've been a fan and watching some of these plays, I'm like, man, that is unbelievable. The ball that Noel plays into Serge, plays it safe side. And then the fact that Serge, he was 3 plays ahead of the defender. He knew he was going to receive it with his right foot, click it behind him, and then he obviously knows what the goalkeeper's going to do once he does that. So his awareness of space and time is so elite, man. He's playing unbelievably well. And, it's so fun to watch.
Well, if you're a fan, particularly at the home games, I think it'd be really cool if you came out with a little drum set.
Well, if I'm going to do that, PK, I'm also going to tailgate then.
Okay.
Yeah. I know some people who would sign off on that in a heartbeat. They would love to see you walking through the tailgate lot. Stop coming in that private parking lot. Park with the people. Just walk through on your way in and just wave, tip of the cap, all that kind of stuff.
And bang on some drums, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be a cool entrance.
PK's going to keep dropping Thunderbird High stuff because it has now come to our attention that there are other people on the staff who are getting annoyed by it. So once PK knows he's got him, he's not going to let go of the reins.
They're just jealous, man. That's all it is.
That's right.
They didn't go to the high school Harvard of Phoenix.
That's right.
Nice. All right, Pablo, Minnesota's coming in. I guess this is a team you could scout just because you had to watch. They were essentially in the same group and were playing the same teams from Mexico. So you just saw them a couple months ago, and now you've gotten to see them here in the last week or so on tape.
Yeah. No, we went down there in preseason or up there in preseason, this World Cup preseason anyways, and had a scrimmage game with those guys. So we have a really good idea as to what they do. Again, they have a very dynamic front three that really they're real quality. And like all Minnesota teams that we've played in the past, they don't give a lot up defensively, and they play for set pieces. They have, I think, 7 guys over 6 foot. So anything in and around midfield, that's a foul. It's going in the box. Any throwing that's 40 yards and in will go into the box. And so defending set pieces will be a priority. So again, the emphasis for us is really how do we get that first goal without giving one up and manage the game from that perspective.
Pablo, we appreciate it as always. Good luck Saturday. Get the drums and head for the parking lot.
Let's go. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Pablo.
Take care.
Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach. RSL in Minnesota. Minnesota's 10th in the West. RSL is 5th, 15 teams in the West. That sounds like a bit of a gap. Only 3 points separate them in the standings. Minnesota wins that game. They're tied with RSL. Bunch of teams clumped together right there in the middle of the Western Conference.